Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our Elephant Professional Lecture here from the Golden Triangle Asian Elephant Foundation in far north Thailand. Today we welcome back an old friend, Doctor now, Lisa P. Barrett, who was here. She'll have to tell us how many years ago she was here with Think Elephants International as a research assistant, and have so many other people who were with us in the old days gone on to great things. And this time in an almost totally related field as well. So she's taken what she picked up here and has improved upon it and learned it and has gone on to publish more papers. Today, she will be talking about elephant problem solving and personality and how those two might relate to one another. Without further ado, and without plugging all of our various fundraisers, which I will do at the end, I will hand you over to Lisa. Good morning, Lisa.
Hi, thank you so much for having me back. Can you see my screen okay? Okay, good. Yeah, it's great to be back and talk with you about our work, especially since World Elephant Day was just last week. So thanks for tuning in wherever you are today or tonight. And I'm excited to talk with you about how elephants solve problems with personality. But first, like John mentioned, I'm an old friend, I guess. I used to be a research assistant with Think Elephants International and got to work with John and the elephants. So I just wanted to give a quick shout out to Think Elephants International and the Golden Triangle Asian Elephant Foundation for making my first experience studying elephants about 8 years ago now, I think, John. So memorable and obviously impactful for my current research. So for my last elephant professional lecture, I spoke a little bit about my research with my collaborator, Dr. Sarah Benson Amram, in the Animal Behavior and Cognition Lab, where we found that elephants could use water as a tool to reach a floating marshmallow reward, and that they may show greater interest in the task after watching a demonstrator interact with it via social learning.
Hey, Lisa?
So that was a really, yeah.
Sorry, we can only see little bits of your screen. Apparently, according to Ajahn Josh, you need to set to presenter view.
Oh, okay, let me try something else.
Hi, Josh. Not quite sure how you do that, unfortunately. That's the first time it's ever occurred through here.
Options I have.
Never forget, Josh is always watching.
Thanks, Josh, wherever you are. This is
New York City, I would say. But that looks good.
Okay.
That looks better. We can see more of the picture.
Let us know if it's better.
Okay, okay. That looks better now. We'll keep going. And if it comes, I'll interrupt again.
Okay, yeah. You don't want to miss this video. So, okay. So this is Shanti solving this floating object task that we gave to the elephant. And here she is using water as a tool to solve. So there's a floating marshmallow in this tube. And here she's adding water from her drinker to solve. And this was a study of social learning, like I mentioned, where we had Shanti demonstrate for other elephants. But what was really interesting about this study is that Shanti was the only individual who learned to solve this task on her own. And so I was really interested to know why this was and whether it had to do with individual differences, such as personality or problem-solving ability among the elephants. And so that led us to our next questions for research, where we wanted to examine personality and innovation and learning ability. So we wanted to see if personality could be related to ability to solve novel problems. And to begin, let's talk about what exactly is personality. How many of you have heard of type A personality or type B personality? I'm sure you're familiar with someone who is maybe more competitive and achievement oriented, someone who's really good at multitasking. They're kind of a planner. We all vary in our personality traits. Some of us are more outgoing than others. Some of us like public speaking more than others. In reality, of course, personality is a continuum. We each have a bit of type A and a bit of type B. It's just that some of us have more of one than the other. And here's another example, this time in some non-human animals. Maybe you've seen these two types of dogs videos circulating the internet.
You have the dogs that love the water. And then you have the dogs that hate the water.
So in case you couldn't see, there were dogs playing in the pool and really enjoying getting water from the hose. And then the camera panned over and there's this group of dogs that clearly are not interested in the water fun that's going on the other side. And so it might seem like a silly example, but here we can clearly see that there's variation in how dogs respond to this situation. And it would not be unreasonable to expect that these two types of dogs would also differ in their reactions in another context. Like
you have the dogs that love the water.
Another context, like maybe if you were to give the dogs a brand new toy, we would expect maybe a similar variation in responses. Maybe the dogs who are fearful in this water situation would also not be too excited about a potentially scary taco toy or a stranger coming to the door. And so that's exactly what we look for when we study personality in animals. We look for variation in response to some situation, but we also look for consistency across different situations. And so in humans, it's really easy to measure personality. We can take the Myers-Briggs personality test. We can ask questions. There are even fun quizzes you can take online to figure out your personality type. But in animals, since we can't give them a survey, we need to have evidence somehow to attribute traits to them. And boldness or fearfulness of new things is one trait that's commonly assessed in animals. And one way we do this is by something called a novel object test. You might be familiar with this or an informal version of this. If you've seen those cat versus cucumber videos that have swept the internet several years ago now. So here's an example of a cat versus cucumber. So that's pretty dramatic, but it's fun to see how these cats are responding to a kind of unfamiliar object, or at least one that's never been that close to them before and kind of takes them by surprise. And then there were also some cat versus cucumber fail videos circulating. And so here, this cat doesn't react in the way those other cats did. It's not jumping and seeming to be surprised by the cucumber. In fact, it's a little bit interested in this weird object it hasn't seen up close before. And so I wouldn't consider that to be a fail at all. That's actually something I'm really interested in, is this variation in responses among animals. And so my research examines how personality relates to another type of trait, problem-solving ability. So in other words, how would those water-fearing dogs or those really reactive cats toward cucumbers, how would they do on a novel problem-solving task like this one for dogs that has parts that have to be manipulated in order to retrieve a food reward inside? Maybe we would expect that actually bolder dogs or bolder cats would be faster to solve a novel problem. And I'm also interested to know if personality explains differences in learning, where if an animal sufficiently learned how the task works, their time to solve the task should decrease over time. So here we have time or trials on the x-axis and time to solve on the y-axis. But why are we interested in personality and problem solving and learning? Well, personality has been shown to be important in a number of different ways for human-wildlife conflict. For example, personality might explain how some species do so well moving into new areas and expanding their range. And one species that comes to mind for this is raccoons, which have thrived on multiple continents, as you can see in this map. And they're commonly considered a nuisance species. So they are also an invasive species. And one thing that researchers have hypothesized is that personality types in invasive species make them really successful. So invasive species could have kind of like a perfect recipe for success in terms of their personality types. At first, in their dispersal phase, it's been proposed that asocial individuals move away from the group because they do best at low densities and they colonize new habitats. And then social types follow the asocials because they're drawn to the group and are drawn to others and become dense. And this is a feedback loop that then leads to increased dispersal by the asocials. And so raccoons, of course, are also really good at innovating new ways to get into trash cans and things like that. And so it's thought that cognition plays a role in their success too. So this is something that researchers are currently looking into. We can also use personality to understand and mitigate human-wildlife conflict in other animals. Researchers have found that brown bears show individuality in the distance that they travel each day and in their preference for daytime or nighttime movements and other behaviors. And so we can use this individual variation in behavior to determine targeted intervention efforts, like knowing which individuals to track and look out for and how to deter them. So Asian elephants, I probably don't have to tell you, are endangered in part due to habitat loss and conflict with humans. And it's thought that personality traits could play a role in terms of which elephants raid crops or how quickly they learn to bypass deterrents like electric fences or habituate to deterrents like loud sounds or bright lights, those types of deterrents. And so here we think that personality and problem solving might be playing a role in human-elephant conflict. In elephants, there has been some work done already in personality. So for example, we know that elephants have shown evidence of traits like curiosity, aggression, and sociability. And I mentioned earlier that we already know a few things about elephant problem-solving ability. Elephants can use water as a tool on the floating object task I mentioned during my last talk. And there have been lots of other studies showing their problem-solving abilities. A study we recently did at the Oklahoma City Zoo showed that elephants can discriminate quantity by sound. So they actually were able to select the larger of two quantities of food after hearing the food dropped one by one into a barrel. And Josh has done a lot of work with this too, in terms of using their sense of smell. And so there are a lot of examples of both personality and problem-solving abilities of elephants, but there hasn't been work yet into the link between these two. So to address this, we first, we collaborated with 3 zoos, the National Zoo, the Oklahoma City Zoo, and the San Diego Zoo, and we first assessed personality of our elephants. We did this in a number of ways. We conducted behavioral observations to look into traits such as activity, aggression, and dominance. And we also presented elephants with novel objects. So just like those cat versus cucumber videos, we presented elephants with objects that they hadn't seen before, at least not recently within their lifetimes, since elephants are small. And so this was to get a measure of their boldness. So here's a video of Mary at the San Diego Zoo interacting with some balloons. We also used a burned log. This is a 2-year-old at the Oklahoma City Zoo interacting with a log. And then for our third object, we used a scent. We used the smell of lion or hyena urine. And this is Maharani at the National Zoo reacting to this scent, which is in this, it's on hay inside of this cardboard box. So that was one of our strongest reactions to this object. The caretakers actually said they had never heard her make that high-pitched sound that she made. So that was really interesting to see. But not all elephants reacted this way. Some of them ignored the box, some of them hung out near the box, some of them blew the box away. So another form of personality assessment that we conducted involved the use of zookeeper surveys. So we were able to take advantage of the fact that this work was done in zoos and really harness that intimate knowledge that zookeepers have of their animals, so their personalities, and because they interact with them every day. So we had them score each elephant on traits like activity, aggression, and boldness. And just to give you an example of what our survey looked like, here are a few traits and their definitions. We had the caretakers rate each elephant on a scale of 1 to 5. So here we listed the traits and defined them. So active/energetic was defined as spends little time idle and seems motivated to spend considerable time either moving around or engaging in some overt behavior. So we ended up finding evidence of consistent personality responses through our observations and our surveys, but not through the novel object presentations. And this could be because the objects were so different from one another. So for example, the lion urine could have seemed much scarier than a balloon, for example. And so next we looked at whether personality was related to ability to solve a novel problem. And this is kind of a proxy for looking at an elephant's ability to overcome deterrence in the wild. So for this, I designed puzzle boxes that, like that dog puzzle I showed you earlier, had parts that have to be turned or pulled or pushed in order to retrieve food inside. So we had the box ball, the rod ball, and then the trap tube, which was actually based on a design used in the primate literature. And for the trap tube, here you can see that the elephants could solve by either blowing from the left side or sucking from the right side. And if they blew from the right side, the apple would fall into a trap and the trial would end. So here's a video of the elephants working on the box ball. This is Debbie at the San Diego Zoo. So she actually crushed the ball, but the puzzle still worked. And because San Diego Zoo has a mixed herd, we ended up testing African elephants as well. So this is Tembo solving the box ball there. And then this is a quick video of Debbie with the rod ball, which was solved by pulling a rod out of a ball and then shaking it so that food would fall out of a hole. And then for the third task, this is a trap tube. So this elephant just solved, and this elephant will blow hard enough from the incorrect side he solved, which we didn't expect to happen. And this will be a trap. So we ended up finding that, this is just gonna keep playing, personality related to problem solving ability in a task dependent way. So for example, more active and more aggressive elephants or more active elephants were faster to solve the trap tube task, but more aggressive elephants were faster to solve the box ball. So it kind of just depended which task, as far as which personality trait was most important, which was really interesting. And in terms of learning, so remember a decrease in latency to solve over time, we did find evidence of learning on 2 out of the 3 tasks. So for the box ball, we saw that latency to solve decreased across trials, and the same for the rod ball. And for learning on the box ball, we found that investigative behaviors during behavioral observations were most important. So more investigative elephants learn to solve the box ball faster. And for the rod ball, we found that more active elephants tended to learn to solve this faster. And what's interesting to note here is that the box ball was the first task that the elephants received. And so maybe being more, wanting to investigate around, and that could have been more important, I guess, for the first task as opposed to the later task the elephants received. So overall, we found that behavioral observations and keeper surveys showed repeatable differences in personality, and that the novel object test did not show evidence of personality, which could be because the objects are so different from one another that they elicited slightly different responses or traits. We found that activity and aggressiveness predicted problem-solving success, but again, there wasn't a single trait that was very important across the board. So that was kind of interesting. And we found that elephants can solve the trap tube, which I mentioned was a paradigm from the primate literature. So that was exciting that we showed that they could solve this primarily primate task, that they could also solve it in a novel way. So I mentioned the elephant who blew the apple hard enough from the incorrect side that it actually was considered a successful solution. So that was something we didn't expect, but was very cool to see. So future work could determine which traits are characteristic of problem individuals in the wild. So are problem individuals the problem solvers? Are they the bolder individuals? We need to find out who are the elephants who are innovating and who are the super spreaders of crop breeding. And then with this information, we could really target intervention efforts like focusing on tracking certain individuals or designing deterrents tailored to personality type. We can also use our knowledge of individual variation in captive settings. So for instance, knowledge of individual personality is often really helpful in planning introductions of unfamiliar individuals for breeding or for exhibit at zoos. For giant pandas, for instance, differences in personality have been found to be correlated with the success of breeding. And we can also use individual responses and behavior to make assessments of candidate animals before they're reintroduced in the wild. So work with swift foxes has shown that captive-born individuals that are classified as bold, according to a number of different behavioral measures, were more likely to die within 6 months of release to the wild. And perhaps we could even see if mahouts and elephants have similar personalities, and what implication this would have for their relationship. So with that, I would like to thank my funding sources and research assistants and all of the zoo staff who made this work possible. And I would be happy to take any questions. Thanks so much for your attention.
Okay, thanks, Lisa. That was brilliant. Great insight, as of course we knew it would be. The quick question about the elephant that solved the apple test by blowing harder. Did she go, having discovered that was a way to solve it, did he or she go on to repeat that, or was it a happy, or do you think it might have been a happy accident that she never worked out how to do again?
Good question. Some of them did repeat that, so I don't think it was necessarily an accident. However, we didn't find evidence of learning on that task. So something I didn't mention is that we actually presented the tube to them 3 times when it was facing one direction. So in other words, solving from one end would be the correct answer. And then we flip the tube. So then they would have to pay attention and know that they have to now solve from the other side. And so that could be one reason why we didn't find evidence of learning. It was like a little bit of a trickier thing that the elephants had to pay attention to. But to answer your question, I guess, yeah, they did. Some of them did repeat the blow over solution, we called it.
Okay, great. And then my other one, which is future work and slightly more complex. It's something that, and it's a comment rather than the question. I always wonder when I hear your talks and others in studying the same thing, and you could possibly study this in mixed herds or larger herds in the zoo, whether, for instance, whether elephants know about one another's special skills, whether when say these 15 elephants that have been moving through China, or the other elephants moving into novel situations, whether when they come across a fence they say, "Oi, you Shanti and so, you're good at fixing you're good at doing fences, you go up and do that." When they come across a ditch, you say, "Okay, you're good at building," a bit like if you watch movies, a Marine Corps moving through a hostile territory. I know you don't have the answer to that, but I'd love to know your opinion. Do you think this thing is possible in the mixed herd of elephants, that they can send the elephant that's good at a certain task forward to do that task? And how would you study it in a zoo setting?
Yeah, that's something we really wanted to study with our social learning task, but it became too messy. When you test as a group, it's a lot more difficult to, obviously keep control of things. But I definitely think that if, considering there are different personality types, it's likely that certain personality types, maybe the shyer individuals, take a step back, so to speak, and bolder individuals step forward in certain situations. Yeah.
Yes, it's funny if you watch videos of in the wild in the wild in Thailand, and also some of the places in high human elephant conflict situations where elephants are moving as a large herd through the countryside. If you watch some of those videos, if they come across a barrier, it's interesting whether that's brute strength. It seems that the bulls will go forward and make a hole. This isn't intelligence, I don't think. I think it's brute strength, but make a hole in the barrier. The herd will then pass through. And sometimes you even see that the male will then stand back and wait for the herd to pass through before he follows. All fascinating stuff. I see there are some questions on Facebook. So, would you like to unmute yourself and ask questions on behalf of our audience?
Yes. We actually have a question from Rebecca. How an African elephant would react to novel smell of an Asian-only cat, such as Bengal or a leopard?
So the question is, how would an African elephant react to an Asian, like tiger?
Yes.
Yeah, that's a good question. I guess I don't know, but they might not recognize it as a predator necessarily, especially if they haven't evolved in that type of environment. But it would probably, I don't know. I mean, I don't know much about the chemicals in urine scent, but there might be some chemical similarities to other things they do know that would elicit a predator response. Good question.
Just to add to that a little bit, we have elephants here that react if they've come. We tend to see a pattern if they've come from the mountains and have never encountered, say, buffalo or cattle before. They tend to be scared of cattle. Whereas the elephants from Surin, where there's very much, they grow up in a cattle raising community. So elephants and cattle are raised almost, one household will raise cattle, the other will raise elephants. The elephants are not scared. So my guess is, Rebecca, that it's not necessarily which continent they come from, but they would react to it as a novel situation. And yes, as Lisa says, adding to your answer, and reiterating that, yes, if there is some similarity between predator urine or cat urine in there, but I think also our elephants wouldn't know this. Our elephants wouldn't know the smell of a tiger either, whereas an African elephant that had grown up in the wild would know the smell of a lion. So, a very interesting question, but it tends to be unfamiliarity no matter which continent they're from. Sorry, next question, please.
Yes, another question also from Rebecca. Can elephants in a herd learn more type A, B behaviors based on either like number one, their direction connection with each other, or number two, simply the environment they find themselves in?
In the what that they find themselves in?
So with your type A, B behaviors, well, I will read again. I'm not quite sure because I missed the whole your presentation. Can elephant in a herd learn more type A or B behaviors based on either like number one, their direct connection with each other, or number two, simply the environment they find themselves in?
Yeah, so I think you're getting at, does the relationship matter between elephants in terms of what behaviors they might pick up from each other? And I would say definitely. So there's a lot of hypotheses about who should learn from whom in terms of social learning and who matters the most. So there's one hypothesis that says you should adopt behaviors that you see your kin doing because you know, they're more trustworthy, you're related to them, it's probably good for you to do what your family's doing. And that is something that we kind of saw with our social learning task with the water tube, is that at one zoo, the elephants were related to the demonstrator. And that's where we saw evidence of social learning, that the observers spent more time interacting with the task after watching a demonstrator. The demonstrator was related. So yeah, I would say definitely that it would depend on the relationship, or it could.
Okay, thank you. Another one from Susan. In an elephant herd, there is a matriarch leader. Did you see any shared personality traits across the herd matriarchs?
So in a zoo setting, the herd dynamics are a little different than in the wild, but there does tend to be a matriarch type figure. That's not something we directly looked at between the two or the three zoos that we studied. So I guess I don't have an answer for you. Maybe we'll have to look into that. That's a good question. But there have been other studies with wild elephants looking at traits like leadership and dominance, finding that those traits were important in matriarchs.
That sounds like a really good excuse to travel out to Savo or somewhere to really, I will come and carry your bags. You set it up, I'll carry
Okay.
it. That's a great question and a great excuse to go to Savo. We have to go and bother Lydia.
Yeah, I think that is our question that we have on Facebook.
Great. Thanks
Okay.
for all the good questions.
Well, thank you very much then once again, Lisa. I think that's all that we have. A great presentation and yes, good questions and everything we need. Just one final point from a bit of housekeeping for us here in the Golden Triangle. Please don't forget, we have a fundraiser going on. I mentioned Savo. Actually, the elephants we'll be protecting with this fundraiser are in a place called Randalin Wildlife Management Area in the Tarangire landscape of Tanzania, an elephant expansion zone. But we are currently running a fundraiser that will help 5 ranger teams all over, mostly in Asia, but then one, as I mentioned, in Tanzania, 2 in Cambodia, 1 in Thailand, and another in the Philippines, protecting, apart from the Philippines, protecting elephants all. And so we would like to invite you to join. We have gathered now over $30,000 worth of prizes to give away. And if we were to stop entrance now, 4 of my family would get about $1,000 worth of prize. So we need you all to come in to stop me getting $1,000 for my $25 down. All you have to do is follow the link that hopefully Kun-U will be able to put up in a second. If not, we will post it. It's here all over the Facebook. It's called a Run, Walk, Crawl for Rangers. All you do is follow the link. You sign up, which costs you $25 US, which is the donation, and will be split. The proceeds will be split equally after any admin costs and everything else. We're not taking any admin costs, but other people have to run websites and things. After the admin costs are taken out, will be split equally between the 5 Ranger teams. And as I say, if you come somewhere in the top 250, assuming 250 people sign up, you have a chance of winning an excellent prize, one of something that adds up a total of up $30,000 US. And if fewer than 250 people sign up, you have a really good chance. But anyway, hopefully more and more will do. So please do that. It's an international thing. All you then have to do is every day in September, log how many steps you take. It's in your iPhone, in your back pocket, will tell you about that, or your Fitbit, or one of those other things that you use. If not, you can download an app and start practicing now and upload. That's all you have to do, and you stand a chance of winning prizes, and you will certainly help rangers around the world. So quick plug for that. I do see that Kun U has published the link. Please do join. Please do share on any of your Facebook groups. Get your colleagues and friends to join in. Have it's great fun. We did one for another reason in June. Have competitions among yourselves to see who can get the most steps, who can get closest to which figure, and everything else. It's good fun, keeps you fit, helps rangers, and you stand a chance of winning a holiday somewhere in the world, including safari in Tanzania is on there now, or a trip to the Maldives, or come and visit us in the Golden Triangle again and sleep in one of the bubbles. So please do sign up for that. Share with your friends and get as many people coming as possible. Without that, without anything much more to add, I will be back, I think tomorrow, or the ladies will be, for the lockdown live stream, and I will leave the final word with Lisa. Thank you very much for talking, Lisa. If you have anything else you would like to share with us, or just say goodbye.
No, that sounds like a fun fundraiser.
Yes, brilliant fun. There's no downside to it whatsoever. I've done one before, and of course you do get the chance to go to. There's all the prizes I would take. And also you can get the Dole Conservation Fund have given us something as well, so you can get a Dole plushie, all sorts of things. Okay, thank you very much, Lisa. Thank you very much for watching.
Thank you so much for having me.
We will leave this live on Facebook, as you say, and I will upload to YouTube very soon, so people will be able to come back. If you'd like to refer to this for your research or anything else, it will be live forever. So please do come back to it at any point. Okay, thank you very much, everybody.
Bye, thank you.